Welcome to Entanglement Radio, transcendent talk for the conscious mind. Join us for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science, new thought, and conscious healing. Explore the potential and infinite possibilities of what it means to be human with some of the best guests in radio. At Entanglement Radio, it is all connected. Now, here is your host, Angela Levesque, on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Mountains here in Boise, Idaho. I have an amazing guest for you today. Best-selling author and futurist Barbara Marx Hubbard is on the program, and we are going to be talking about the next phase in human evolution. So just before we get there, I got a few housekeeping things to take care of. Next week, I will be off traveling to visit family and friends for the holidays. So I want to wish all my listeners a Merry Christmas, and I will be back actually live on the 30th with my show. I like to do this show every year, talking about setting intentions, visions for the future, all sorts of wonderful stuff. So, and then we'll be back again in the new year on January 6th with Don Miguel Ruiz. So some great lineup coming for you today. But if you need to get a hold of me at any time during the week, you can email me at angela@hestiahealth.com. You can find me on Facebook and on Twitter at Hestia Health and Entanglement Radio. And I just love to connect with listeners and all you folks out there. So let me get to the show, though, because I am so excited. This show, Entanglement Radio, I started it almost a year ago now with the idea of exploring potential and the possibilities of being human. And I could think of no better guest to have this conversation with than somebody who has been doing this for decades. So let me introduce Barbara Marx Hubbard, has been called the voice for conscious evolution by Deepak Chopra, as the subject of Neil Donald Walsh's book, The Mother of Invention. Many would agree that Barbara is in the world's foremost global ambassador for conscious change. At heart, Barbara Marx Hubbard is a visionary, a social innovator. She thinks from an evolutionary perspective and believes that global change happens when we work collectively and selflessly for the greater good. Prolific author and educator, Barbara has written 7 books on social and planetary evolution. She is not an idealist, nor does she believe that social and planetary change is simple, but she does believe that humanity has the tools, fortitude, and resolve to take the leap towards conscious evolution. So with that, I feel very honored and blessed to welcome Barbara Marx Hubbard to the program. Hello, Barbara.
Thank you. Hello there. Hi there. What a great thing you have undertaken to do all this. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. You know, I used to do a show on health and healing, and when I moved over to OMTimes, I just thought, what do we really need to be talking about? We need to be talking about our potential. And so
yes,
I was just so excited. And you have recently written a book called The Evolutionary Testament of Co-Creation. The promise will be kept. So I want to start there. What is this promise?
It's a very great, pertinent question. The promise is that we are becoming a new species, co-evolving with nature and co-creating with spirit. That Homo sapiens sapiens, the species that is self-conscious, self-aware, and aware of separation, has for a couple 100,000 years been building this huge culture of power. If we use the power of science, technology, industry, nanotech, biotech, and so forth in a state of self-centered consciousness, we will destroy ourselves and our world. If we use this power in the state of loving, co-creative, eventually universal consciousness, we will evolve the world. So when we do that, when we become self-evolving, co-creating species, I see us restoring the earth, freeing most people from deficiencies and basic need levels, and beginning the vast exploration of the inner human potential and the universe beyond the planet. I think we'll find we're being born into a universe filled with life.
I just love that. And do you believe that that is like the time is now? We are just ripe for this. And when we look at it from a very, I guess, a linear logical timeline, are we talking like a decade? Are we talking half a century? Or are we talking about like we need to start connecting with this information yesterday.
That's the amazing thing. It looks like the crisis, particularly in the climate change area, which we just finished the Paris conference, there is no longer any time to waste at all. And from what the more knowledgeable scientific people say, is we've already gone over the limit of carbon in this environment. We're already going to face tremendous catastrophes of the risings of the seas and the melting of the glaciers. But we have to, in any case, however too far we've gone, we have to stop going in that direction immediately. Now, the immediately is a hard thing because the industrial complex is based on this. So it's not just, oh, yes, let's change. That means the changing of the structure of society, particularly the economic structure and the social structure of power. And so what we're facing is, I think, a very rapid emergence of a new culture. Like you and me. I mean, I sometimes ask the people who interview me, how many millions of dollars have you been paid to do this job?
None.
None. Every single person who interviews me says that. Now, then I'll say, well, what is it that's motivating you?
Oh, because I see that we're destined for something bigger. And I've felt that since I was little, but I am just so excited about our potential. Like, I really just think that we are built for so much more.
So here's what my observation is about you, me, and how many millions like us, is there's a type of human now on this earth who is truly excited about what's emerging, what's potential, what's creative, what's loving, and most importantly, what you can do about it yourself. Your vocation. Well, clearly your vocation, your calling, comes from your potential, which comes from that impulse of creativity or universal evolution within you, motivating you. So it's not that you're being forced to do this.
Not at all.
You're yearning to do it. I'm going to be 86 on December 22nd. Now, I have to laugh at this because what's happened to me is I've fallen in love with the impulse of evolution within me. I've said yes to it. So the more yes I say, the more it turns on. Epigenetics, the idea that consciousness affects the genes, I feel very well sure my own cellular life is being affected by my passion to evolve.
Absolutely. And I know I can feel your energy, and it's amazing how much we impose even self-limitations. And we just think, especially something like aging, we just think, oh, this is what happens to us. We start to slow decline and mental decline and all of that. And you're just saying we need more people who are connected to that potential, that are willing to say yes.
Right. And the women over 50 are an amazing group, and I say that we have entered regenopause. After menopause, no more eggs to reproduce the species. We are the egg. We are the new birth, and the feminine co-creator, who is motivated by that creative intention within her to give her gift the whole way, is a phenomenon on Earth, and very, very important to the world.
You had talked about the Paris Accords and climate change and the breakdown. And one of the things that you say in your book about this transformation is that it can't just come from a place of reform, that we can't look at this time and say crisis. And, kind of that's what we were doing. We were talking about carbon capturing and reducing carbon. But fundamentally, when I look at that, we need to look at the desire within ourselves that drives the industry, drives the economy, all of those things, that if we don't look at that within ourselves, then, we can carbon capture all we want, but it's going to maintain the status quo and probably lead to a deterioration. So one of the things you said as well in your book is that we're at a place that is so uncomfortable for most of us, and that's how we know we're ready to transform. So what do you think about this idea of reform versus transform?
Well, you can't reform. It's a very good analogy. It's the newborn baby. The newborn baby has just been doing fine in the womb. And then in comes this contractions, and it's going down, and it's suddenly scared. It has to breathe, it has to nurse, it has to open its eyes, it has to do stuff it has never done before. And it doesn't know that it can do it, and it doesn't even know that it's been born. So I'm taking this analogy now for a global planetary culture. We've never been this before, but due to a set of crises and potentials, we're being connected very, very rapidly into a living system. And the internet and the social media, I think I heard from Mark Zuckerberg the other day that one day in Facebook they had 1 billion people. 1 billion people were on Facebook simultaneously during one day. That's 1/7 of the entire human race on Facebook. We have over 7 billion cell phones. This means that the nervous system of the planetary body is very, very rapidly being connected. And I think the question is, what are we putting into that nervous system? If we're putting in these ideas, such as you're bringing forward, I'm bringing forward, many of us are, we're going to be realizing it's a crisis of the birth of a co-evolving humanity. It's the crisis of the birth of the capacity to fulfill divine potential. And I don't mean create a utopia where everything's perfect. It's creating a birth where everything's beginning, So you don't say when the baby's born, oh, well, now it's all done, it's perfect. No, it's when the work really begins is when the baby's born. So in some respects, the global planetary humanity is just barely beginning its purpose now as a culture.
Okay, well, when we get back, I want to talk more about the New Testament and some of the work of Jesus as an evolutionary. So we'll be right back with Barbara Marx Hubbard.
Okay.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of the Inspired Parenting radio show, where every week we bring you empowering information from the diverse fields of conscious parenting, education, neuroscience, consciousness, health, and metaphysics to support you in nurturing the best in your children. So if you're interested in understanding what shapes your children's minds, spirits, and hearts, join me every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and prepare to be inspired.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business. Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
Levesque right here on the OMTimes Radio Network. If you're just joining us today, we have best-selling author and futurist Barbara Marx Hubbard, and we are talking about the next phase of human evolution, which is fantastic. That's why I created the show. Like you're it. That's So I want to, your book, The Evolutionary Testament of Co-Creation, is really a futurist perspective of the Bible, particularly the New Testament. And I want to start with the crucifixion and the resurrection, because you have a very different view of what that was about. Because often, we talk about it from a place of forgiveness and, he's saving us from our sins, but you take this out of the park. So explain from your perspective what that event was about.
Oh, well, it's very interesting. I got this from St. Paul when he said, without the resurrection, our faith is meaningless. And I began to, as an evolutionary woman who studied biology, studied nanotechnology, studied artificial intelligence, at the growing edge of what's called transhumanism in the futurist movement, people like Ray Kurzweil, and you start looking at the potential of the new technologies to create new bodies, literally. Eventually, to create a cosmic species, eventually. There is no thought that would be reasonable to assume this level of mammalian body is the final result of evolution. It isn't. Bodies constantly change with new consciousness, from fish all the way on up to us. When you think of a Christ, a Jesus, a consciousness, and him being guided, you might say, by his understanding of the Father at Gethsemane, go to Jerusalem. He knew he was going to face crucifixion. He did not have to go to Jerusalem. The Father, the source within him, said, go. So he went directly to be crucified. And you would say, why was that? Here's my interpretation, that it was absolutely essential to demonstrate that beyond the mammalian body, there is a new light body type human emerging. This type of light body is seen in almost all the near-death experiences. I talked to the man who wrote Proof of Heaven, and I asked him what he thought Jesus' resurrection body was. He said it's a light body. And in his book, he talks about in that near-death, or you might say even extended life experiences, when people have not actually died, almost all of them see a universe filled with light bodies. So here's what I'm assuming. Jesus demonstrated a new body. Mary Magdalene saw something real. The nature of that body, as described, was it could appear and disappear. Lo, he was here, lo, he was there. That's exactly the same as UFOs do. They appear and disappear. Some people have said they're photon bodies, light bodies, because the current physicality cannot do what UFOs are seen to do. Well, let's say that the 3 days in the tomb was the time for transubstantiation of a body. And there's a beautiful phrase in Corinthians about the new human. It's moving from Adam of the living soul to Adam of the quickening spirit. This is St. Paul. So the quickening spirit is where you and I are spirit right now, affecting our own bodies right now, even as we speak. Not necessarily to create a new light body yet, but I have been working with what I call a universal self that is a light body that is related to me in some deep way, almost like myself in the future. And there are all kinds of higher self experiences that people have. And this one is leading me to believe that as we evolve as humans right now, the evolving human, incarnating our own essential self, our own higher self, our own God self, whatever language you want to use for the higher reaches of human potential, that we will eventually no longer have animal bodies that die involuntarily, that we will have the ability to transform bodies, our own bodies, extend life. And the way this will happen, some people think, like Nassim Haramein, that it will happen through getting in touch with the 0-point energy field of resonance and shifting bodies from there, rather than manipulating through genetic engineering? We don't know. But you know what? Nature has been creating new bodies for new consciousness for billions of years, and it's not stopping now.
It's fun.
So Jesus is an example of a new body that's potential for humanity.
Yes, I'm actually staring at my wall right now looking at 3 butterflies, and I just think how appropriate for this conversation and about emergence. And but one thing that and this is something I personally struggled with, that I just was very refreshing when the way that you talk about technology, because I think that there's a camp of people that think that we need to back away from technology, that where we're headed is more community-based, and I think that is because we have done a few things in science and in technology that maybe are more about dominion over nature. But you really say you embrace technology, and you, in fact, blend it as much as possible in with spirituality and with social change. And that to me was really interesting. So I want to talk a little bit about where you see that technology and where it's going to take us. Because you did bring up Ray Kurzweil, and I think about putting our consciousness on a computer, and I think, is that really where we want to go?
Well, there's so many important questions you're asking there. So first of all, I say we don't know, number one. Number two, we've been given powers that definitely transform bodies. Number three, we're going to use it one way or the other, and already are. So the question then is how, not whether, unless we self-destruct ourselves, because there's no way of stopping knowing more. And nature is always creating new bodies, so I feel it's natural. That's where I distinguish myself from some other people. And I think that this is where in the New Testament writing comes in so wonderfully, is that if we combine new technologies with Christ consciousness, and the phrase that he had, you will do the works that I do, and greater works will you do in the fullness of time, because I go to the Father, because I'm one with Source. I think that's true. I think that we do have the powers now. We are all being changed. We should all be changed, but we don't have the image of the Christ and the love that Jesus was able to express in his whole being. Just imagine that degree of love of everyone, that degree of capacity to tune into Source and be one with Source at all times, as he was. Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Under the most terrible torture, to be able to say that. Wow. And much less the ordinary life. And that we are going in that direction. And after the writing, I felt that I was not channeling it, I was knowing it. And I think my studies of futurism helped me to understand Jesus, because the things that he did, we are doing, including virgin births and producing in abundance and being able to travel by holograms with the speed of light. We are doing it all. And so my book, Evolutionary Testament of Co-Creation, The Promise Will Be Kept, is a way of incarnating inside ourselves the evolving Christ. That's really its purpose. And you, who are doing this show, are already incarnating, in my language, that living being of the Christ, because you're already emerging. You're already aware that things are emerging. You want things to emerge. So you're one of those. I'm that way. And Teilhard de Chardin said this: there are two types of humans on this earth. One he called Homo progressivus, attracted to the future as an organism progressing to the unknown. And the other he called Homo bourgeois, trying to hold on to everything the way it is. And you know, when you watch, let's say I watched the Republican debates last night, not only holding it as it is, but how to go back to more military power, or how to go back to more fundamentalist ideas of superiority of certain people over others, et cetera, et cetera. There's going back. There's a lot of that going on today in all cultures. And then there's the going forward group that is growing extremely rapidly. And my greatest purpose in life is a planetary awakening of the co-creators worldwide, connecting in a unique self-symphony of joining genius to create. That's what I want to do. I want to create a major global voice with colleagues and teachers that are capable, like I am, of expressing this, using all the local media and great bigger media and internet media to communicate and see how many people we could get in the next 4 to 5 years to shift the system by being connected in the noosphere together. I'm going to play out the whole story.
We have about a minute and a half before we go to break. But speaking of, you're talking about the debates, I just want to say something. It really was outlined well in the book for me when you talked about, if we look at the evolution of all of our species, like even from single-celled organisms, if at any point one of those organisms said, let's restore to a previous state of balance, something that we go back to the 50s and how that was, we wouldn't have moved forward. We wouldn't have gotten to where we were today. And to me, just thinking about that, even from a single cell to a multi-celled organism, at any point, if they're like, whoa, let's go back.
Right.
When I read that, it just became so clear to me how silly that thinking is.
Yes, exactly. Oh, yeah, so true.
Well, as I said, we're going to be up here in a break, so I don't want to start the next conversation. But one of the things I wanted to say, so I was pretty nervous coming in and having to interview you, but then I had this awareness that we can pick up after the break, is that, when we think about the spiritual teachers or the gurus or people, who are well known, and I was thinking about where my anxiety comes from, and it's because at some point I put you up on a pedestal, and I think about the way that we have put Christ up as separate from us. That's something that we can't embody, that we have to look up to, but we can't bring down to our own heart level. So I want to talk about that separation and how we really connect with that when we return here on Entanglement Radio. We'll be right back.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Hailing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Hailing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Matt Connerton here. Join Jen Coffey and I twice a week for Matt Connerton Unleashed, a political talk show that's a little different than what you're used to. No liberal or conservative agenda here, just an honest dialogue about truth and how things really work in the world of politics. Matt Connerton Unleashed, every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. Free your mind with OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
All right, we are back, and you're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque right here on the OMTimes Radio Network. If you are just joining us today, we have Barbara Marx Hubbard on the program, and we are talking about the subject of her book, The Evolutionary Testament of Co-Creation, The Promise Will Be Kept. Well, before the break, Barbara, I was saying that how there was that tendency for me to put you on this very high pedestal. And then I was thinking, that's kind of the opposite of what she's trying to say in her book, is that we can't see ourselves as this, this in separation, and that we really need to move from that self-consciousness to that universal whole consciousness. And I think that that's what we've done with Jesus, as we look at him and we exalt him and we put him so much higher that we, just a second. We just lost her for a second. Let me call her back here. And we have put him so much higher that we've moved in a place of worship versus real connection. So we're just getting her back.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi there. Hi there. Oh, my gosh.
Well,
yes. Where were we right now? What were we saying?
Oh, I was just talking about our tendency when we look at like the teachings of Jesus in the New Testament, that we separate ourselves from that, and how if we need to move from a place of self-consciousness into universal whole consciousness, we need to feel that connection and pull that energy from a heart-to-heart space versus, a worshiping space.
Exactly. And this is the purpose of the Evolutionary Testament book, and also the webinar series that I'm going to be starting on January 6th. It's all about how do we embody the living Christ as an evolutionary force within ourselves. So it's different than ordinary mystical embodiment, or mystical experience. It's the mystical experience being embodied as who we are. As who we are going forward to do the works, and even greater works shall we do. So this is all the things that we're going to be doing, and I'm just thrilled. And so the webinar it's at evolutionary.academy. And if you click on evolutionary.academy, www.evolutionary.academy.
Because I've got to say that, the book.
Click on register. I want everybody who's interested in this to consider coming onto the webinar, because it will be interactive. There'll be a chance to see each other. There'll be a chance to create community with each other.
Absolutely. And I was saying that the book is it's a big read, and it is. Something that you can't, I have to read a book a week for this show. And so it's something that you can't just digest in 7 days, not even close. But, you need to read it and understand it. And I like that word, embody it, because that's really where we're at now. It's not just enough to know stuff as an intellectual conversation or concept, but how do we embody this?
So the embodiment is what really all mystical tradition tells us. This is not a new idea, but to embody the emerging Christ as your own potential self is new, and it's actually true. Because we are the species born at the time of a planetary awakening. And in the New Testament, it calls it, in my writing, the planetary Pentecost. And the first Pentecost, the disciples spoke each in their own language. They spoke as Galileans, and everyone heard it in their own language. So we're going to be able to speak, each of us, in our own language, and hear the inner words of the divine in our own images, in our own way, so that the walls of religion will come down when you feel it internally yourself,
Mm-hmm. So that was going to be kind of my next question, is that obviously in your book you talk about it's a futurist perspective of the New Testament and the book of Gospels. And what about for people where their path to understanding this maybe isn't from a Christ-like perspective? And because there's obviously many world religions out there. So what do you say for those people who are perhaps Buddhist or Muslim?
I'm not a Christian. in the sense of belonging to a Christian church. I'm a futurist and an evolutionary. And I think every great faith was founded by a great evolutionary, as they say so, including Buddha and Muhammad. And then they get codified by their religions. Now what's happening is the people at the growing edge of every religion are opening up to the fact that it's within them. And their great teachers were telling them, that's what they all said, be me, you are that. And so the ones that are saying yes to that are incarnating all of them. I happen to get this experience of the Christ, but it could be, and also the thing about the Judeo-Christian faith, as contrasted, let's say, to the Buddhist or Islam, is the Judeo-Christian faith has a sense of the evolving future. You know, Abraham, he saw the stars. It's go, Abraham, go forth, transform. You will do the works that I do. We shall all be changed. St. Paul said, whereas in the, let's say, the Islam tradition, it's not so much as we shall all be changed, but through submission to the will of God, we shall be saved. We shall become divine. It's more in the submission to the will, whereas ours is embodying the will of God. So the Jewish-Christian, the Judeo-Christian world is the one that gained the new power, that caused the bomb, and that could destroy the world, and has to take responsibility for its power. Now, what's happened recently is it's now a global power. The scientific industrial world is global. It's certainly, look at China, it's a huge industrial society up to a point, and so is now India and everywhere. But the next step is we can't just industrialize in the old way because we've hit the carbon crisis. Mm-hmm. So it isn't about everybody doing what the Western cultures did. The Western cultures have to be changed. And who's going to change the Western cultures is us. But they're not just Western anymore, they're global. So I think the whole thing has gone global.
Absolutely. In your view, and because I know that this is a sticking point for a lot of Christians, is when they talk about the work of the devil or Satan. From a futurist view, an interpretation of the Bible, what is the devil?
You know, I've tried to think about that a lot, and I feel there is a deep flaw in the nervous systems of humanity. Not a sin, not a devil, but a problem. And here's the problem. It's an abnormal degree of the illusion of separateness from nature, from each other, and from spirit. However that happened, I don't know. But when you think of it, I realized this as a child, to see anybody torturing anybody else or any animal, I would say this is not normal. The idea that we could have this degree of a pain that we cause each other is not normal. So I make the crisis here to do with a nervous system defect of lack of empathy. We don't feel the normal connectivity to each other, to nature, and to spirit within. And those of us who do have always been pioneers on this earth. But now it is my devout faith and belief that millions and millions of us are becoming like this, that we are all being changed. And those of us who are being changed are the most important thing on earth.
Another thing that you mentioned is that for those of us, like you were saying, that feel that potential and get excited, that part of our role is not to force or proselytize or, go and say, this is how it needs to be done, that it's just through modeling, embodying, and speaking to those who are called to that lightness, which is different than, hey, we know the way, you got to follow it.
I think I call it evolution by attraction.
Oh, I love that.
So it's not about trying to force people, which you can't anyway. But if you and I are really excited about something, like I am, I'm excited about the idea of a planetary awakening. I'm excited about the idea of joining together to create a new world. So, of course, I'm going to say it to everybody. Mm-hmm. But it's not like imposing it. It's offering. That's all you can do. But when you are excited and when you are attracted, you become attractive.
Ooh, I like that. I really do. Because I know I've seen that, having interviewed so many people, and that when people are really feel that passion and they feel very connected, that people are just naturally drawn to that light. They are
when they get attracted, they become attractive, and if what they're attracted toward is a more loving future for humanity, and, restoring the earth, freeing the people, exploring the vast new potentials of inner and outer space, then you want to go all out to communicate that. And also, I would like to have us work toward a planetary awakening of connecting those of us who feel this way. And my friend Mark Gaffney calls it a unique self-symphony. If you think about that, everybody is a unique expression of the whole process of creation, incarnate as you, incarnate as me. A unique self-symphony would be when we get orchestrated into a whole process of creation together. And the orchestrator is the same part of the universal spirit that orchestrates the whole universe, I believe.
And if you think about it, there's never been a time that has enabled us with our technology, with the internet, to really be connected on many, many different levels.
No, there never has been a time, and there never has been a need. Because in facing the global crises of environment and other such global crises, it cannot be done by separated nation states contending with each other. And I think they saw that in Paris at the climate change conference. It was at least a breakthrough of the awareness of all of these leaders that at Copenhagen 6 years ago, they just didn't do it. They did not do it.
Yeah.
And this time something new had happened.
On one level, all of them, I think 183 countries came together and signed that. So that in itself is a big step forward, I think. But
it is. It is.
We're up on a break. Well, you're listening to Entanglement Radio, and we'll be right back with Barbara Marx Hubbard.
Let's see.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of the Inspired Parenting Radio Show, where every week we bring you empowering information from the diverse fields of conscious parenting, education, neuroscience, consciousness, health, and metaphysics to support you in nurturing the best in your children. So if you're interested in understanding what shapes your children's minds, spirits, and hearts, join me every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and prepare to be inspired.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Radio with Angela Levesque right here on the OMTimes Radio Network. This is a little segment where we like to bring it on home, and it's brought to you by Hestia Health, creating open hearts, calm minds, inspired lives. You can go to hestiahealth.com to learn more about how to get the center of yourself, looking within the center of yourself before you go light the flame in your community. So, Barbara, this is where, because we talk about these big things, and I want to kind of give people an idea what this looks like. So or where we're headed, ideally, from your perspective. And you talk about process science and a synergistic democracy. Can you explain those two things for us?
Well, it's so amazing that science is discovering through quantum physics that the way reality occurs is through being observed. At the particle level, the particle doesn't exist until it's observed. So you can't measure the outside world apart from your observing it. And in your observing it, you are bringing it into form. Now, this is like an amazing reality because the world looks like it's a 3D world to all of us, and it is at the level of Newtonian, world. But at the level of what's going on, it is a world that is emerging out of the field of you might say, intelligence or spirit. So as we go into process science and synergistic democracy, what the most important thing everyone does is tune into the deepest spiritual aspect of your intention. Your expression of the divine process of creation as you, whatever your calling is, whatever you want to do. Like yours is doing exactly what you're doing. So is mine. Right now, I'm doing what I'm born to do. I'm born to communicate this. And so I'm already rewarded. I'm not doing this because you're paying me a lot and I'm not paying you a lot and there's no money exchange. Now, we need resources to do things, but that's not the motive. The motive is giving the gift so it can be, you get fulfilled, you get actualized by giving your gift. That's the way nature made us. So, what was your question? It was
about process science and what a synergistic democracy is.
Okay, so a synergistic democracy is one where we change Robert's rules of order, which is win-lose parliamentary procedure of different kinds, to synergistic rules of order, which is looking for common goals and matching your needs with other people's resources, or vocational connecting to co-create in the light of all these new scientific, social, spiritual potentials that are opening up. And we do this spontaneously in small ways all the time. But the structure of our democracy is win-lose. And you can see that in every single debate. When I told you I was watching the Republican debate last night, they're forced to be combative. So they have to combat each other and knock each other out. And then they have to knock Hillary Clinton out. And they all have to knock each other out. Well, you can only go so far with that and expect to evolve the species. So synergistic democracy is we would be getting together in circles. I've done 25 conferences called SynCon for Synergistic Convergence. So people meet in areas of health, education, economics, science, environment, government, and state what they want to create, what they need, what their resources are, and then you have a chance of sharing needs and resources. If you have 100 people in the room doing that, rather than 100 people sitting in rows listening to a speaker, it's entirely different. So I see that the work that people like me and many others are doing toward a planetary awakening, connecting co-creators worldwide, would be a pioneering in synergistic self-governance. We're not trying to become the government, because the government is not what we want to become, actually. We want to become self-governing. And I think it will influence the nature of democracy itself, which we might say is failing everywhere. win-lose democracy, whether it be in the United States, in the Arab Spring where they were trying it, the dictators took over. Here, various social forces take over, and people are forced to be embattled for months against each other. That is a very severely crippled system that does that enforces that, and it makes everybody's oppositional position extreme, and you know when you listen to them that they don't really believe that. But they have to do that, and then there's a conservative base that they all play to, which is, the least creative of all. So that doesn't work, and that's what I think.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, because when I think of synergy, and I've been talking a lot about this lately, that we need to have both and conversations, that it's not an either or, and your ideas don't have to exist only if at the destruction of somebody else's, because we need more people with these solutions to come to the table and not be ostracized or, kicked to the curb, because we need to be, it's my way or the highway. I need to be the winner. And so we need to step away from that ego, fear-based place and say, okay, let's see how we can take the best of what we've got and put it together. And to me, when I think here's synergy, that's what I think. And yes, that it's so destructive, that idea that my idea or solution is only valid at the destruction of yours.
Absolutely. That's right. And that's basically infantile.
Yeah, it is.
It's stupid.
So for my listeners, like I said, I like to bring it on home, and they're thinking, and you've got the creative juices flowing and they can feel the potential rising up. What is something that they can start doing today in their lives to move us towards this co-creative paradigm?
I think it's to just take some quiet time, turn your attention within, and ask yourself, what do I most want to create? What is the creativity in me? You can be a mother, you can be a doctor, you can be a young person in school, but whatever you're in, there's a growing edge in everybody. And you get in touch with that. It's a glimmer of attraction of your greater potential self. So that's number one. Get the glimmer of what attracts you. Next, try to find at least one other person to share it with in a field of love, resonance, and acceptance, rather than judgment. And then ask for guidance as to what to do next. Everybody can do that. Everybody.
Beautiful. Do you think that there's like a certain amount, like Malcolm Gladwell talked about the tipping point? Do you think that there's a certain, because I know from this show, from people I talked, that there's millions of people that are, ushering this in. Do you think that there's a certain amount that we have to reach in order for this to move from reform to transform?
Absolutely. I think there's a critical mass, and I think probably we're already here, but we haven't been connected. That's why connecting the co-creators worldwide is the most evolutionary thing that we can do.
And well, we've got a few minutes left, and I want to give you plenty of opportunity. You had talked earlier in the program about your 12-week webinar, so I want to give you the opportunity to share those dates and how people.
Well, I want everyone to know that it's going to be incarnating this spirit of your own evolving potential self, using. We'll have people like Michael Beckwith on there. Neil Donald Walsh will be on there. A great Catholic theologian will be on there with me. Ilia Delio, Mary Manin Marcy, one of the most popular New Thought teachers in the world, will be on with me. But each of them is going to be dealing with a section of the New Testament and sharing how people can offer it for their own life and their own work. And there'll be a wonderful webinar. You'll be able to see all this, and we deeply, deeply look forward to seeing you.
Fantastic.
It starts January 6th. Go to evolutionary.academy, register, and you'll find it.
And then do your website where people can find your book, all of that good stuff.
evolve.org.
Very simple.
And you can order this Evolutionary Testament from Amazon as well. You get it really fast.
And one of the things I would urge my listeners is, we spoke on this a little bit at the program, that maybe for some reason or another you've been turned off by religion, and this book is just blowing it out of the park. It's not.
It's not religion.
Yeah,
it's evolution.
And one of the things I love is you do some writings in there where you're connecting to Christ consciousness. He talks about, bring in the non-believers. Kind of like, I love the non-believers. Let's have this conversation, and
bring them in because they're doing great work.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to say it's just been fantastic to be able to speak with you. Your energy, your vision is just so needed right now, and you've been doing it for decades. So I want to thank you personally from my heart space to yours, just for the work that you've done and blazing those trails for us that are doing the best we can as well.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it. It's a wonderful interview. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, next week I will be off. I want to wish you all a wonderful Christmas, and I will be back on the 30th talking about my visions, setting intentions, all the good stuff that we need to do as we bring in the new year. And then we will be back with Don Miguel Ruiz on January 6th. So I'm very excited about that. You can hear my show every week on the OMTimes Radio Network at 12 p.m. Eastern. And you can find me on Facebook and on Twitter at Hestia Health and Entanglement Radio. And if you want to find out more about me and the services I offer, you can go to HestiaHealth.com. This is Angela Levesque wishing you love and light. We'll be back in a couple of weeks.